Hello, I'm Brian with Snowy Customs, and today we're going to go through how to fix a Honda lock cylinder. This is for when you put your key in the ignition and it won't turn. It's for this style of key, and I wish somebody would have had a video like this on YouTube when I was going through how to fix this problem, because it can be a real pain in the butt. So let me get this arranged here. Okay, let's first start with explaining exactly what happens. I think a couple disclaimers here. I am not a locksmith. I'm not a Honda mechanic. I'm just a guy who likes to figure things out and not spend a fortune having somebody else fix my stuff. So what I've found when these lock cylinders fail is the key, when the key goes in, and I've actually already fixed the problem, but when the key goes in and you go to turn it and it just won't turn, right? Well, these are what I would call tumblers, and you can actually see, if you look real close at them, I'm not even going to try to do that on camera because I'm also not a recording specialist. So, but basically what happens is these tumblers get stuck, and when you put the key in and out, they get worn down to the point where it ends up being the first one in line. So it's the one that gets the most use. In other words, when you put your key in this lock cylinder, the tumbler that sees the most action ever over the whole entire lock cylinder's life will be the first one in line, because it always has to get actuated. Now, the last one in line only gets actuated by the very tip of the key. So, in other words, if you don't put your key all the way in or what have you, this one is probably worn least, and this one's always going to be worn the most. It's got more action going on there. It's got to follow up and down those ridges on that key. That being said, the best way to fix this problem is, let me rearrange this here. I guess one more thing that you have to know is kind of how this whole system works. Basically, here's your steering column. Okay, steering wheel is going to be right here. Here's your key, lock cylinder, right? Put the key in, turn it, start it, right? Pretty straightforward. Not very straightforward when it won't turn. Okay, a couple other things. This right here locks your steering wheel, okay? The only way that this is lowered out of the lock position, right now it's in the lock your steering wheel position, okay? The only way that that goes down is after you put the key in successfully and turn it to the on position, okay? Then that's start, right? Now, the only way that this is able to lock your steering wheel is after, see, I'm already in the off position. I'm in the basically lock position, but the only time that this actually locks your steering wheel is after you pull the key out. Watch. So that's important to know. Sometimes this will happen when your steering wheel is turned sharply one direction or another, and the momentum or whatever you want to call it of your car basically turns your steering wheel back up against this lock. Okay, so sometimes you need to kind of free up your steering wheel a little bit. In other words, turn it to the direction where it'll actually turn to, and kind of hold it in that position, like floating, to allow this this lock to lower down. Sometimes that'll actually be the reason why your key won't turn, is because your steering wheel is turned in such a way that when it rolled backwards after you shut off your car or whatever happened, the steering wheel's turning really hard, and it's jamming up this lock right here, right? And it's making it to where it's really hard to turn that key because it's almost caught on that lock. Okay, so that could be one of your problems. But if that's not your problem, that would be the first thing that I would check, right? Make sure that you can't you know, free up your steering wheel a little bit to where it's kind of floating in between. You know, when you steer your steering wheel, you can feel there's a little bit of slack in between where it goes against one side of the lock, this lock mechanism, and the other side of this lock mechanism that actually makes it so your steering wheel can't move. What you need to do is kind of get it right in the middle of there, and try to turn your key then. Okay, that would be before you ever get this far into it. But if that won't work, the next thing you need to do, and like I said, I'm not a locksmith, but this has worked for me more than once, is you need to get this lock cylinder out of the car. Okay, and I'm not 100% saying you have to do that, but I've found that it's easier to take this mechanism out of the car so that you have room to work on it. You can get some light. You're not all cooped up in there, cramped up in there, dropping screws, everything. I mean, there's lots of little tiny parts. There's little tiny springs. There's these tumblers. There's a bunch of them. You almost need to take it out of the car. Now, a skilled guy could probably do it in the car. I've done it 3 times now. The first time I destroyed a lock cylinder just to figure out how it worked. Now I know how to fix this problem. As long as you, and actually, you don't even need the key. Honestly, if you have these keys are chipped, so there's 2 different forms of security here. You have the ridges of your key, okay, or what allows the lock cylinder to actually turn. But there's also a chip inside of this key, and if you don't have both of them at the same time going on, the Honda's not going to start, or you know, you're gonna. That's a different video maybe, but the point being is that without the chip that's in this key, I don't care what you do to this cylinder, right, to get it to turn. Okay, you can destroy the cylinder all you want. You get it to turn. If you don't have the chip that's in that key that gets read through this little ring right here, and we'll go through that in a minute, the car's not going to start, or it will start and then it'll die right away. Okay, so basically what you need to do is we need to get the lock cylinder out of this housing. Okay, and so the best way to do that, and actually the best way to get this out of the car, okay, let's go through that here. This is what secures the lock cylinder housing mechanism, whatever you want to call it, to your steering column. Okay, now when they put these on at the factory, these actually have a bolt head on them that breaks off after you tighten it to a certain torque. The bolt head breaks off, and you know, it's really hard to remove. Well, it's not that hard to remove, but it's kind of hard to remove after that. It's a little bit harder than it would be if it had obviously a bolt head on it. So what you need is, you either need to grind or file or something, a little, like a straight line in there to where you could get a flat-headed screwdriver on it and back it out of there. Or what I did was I used a chisel, and I kind of just chiseled a nice solid spot in it to where I could get it to start turning. And once it actually starts turning, I don't know if this one's stock or from the factory, or if it's been replaced or not. It seems like the last one I took apart had some thread locker or something on those threads, but this one came apart pretty easy. This is out of a 2003 Honda Pilot, I believe. anyways, so I took a chisel, and a hammer, and I kind of just slowly started to get this thing to turn, and then I was able to just, you know, back it out by hand. Now when I go to put this back together, I've got some, you know, locally from my bins sourced bolts that I'm going to bolt it back together with. You can do whatever you want to do on that. If you happen to grind, you know, something into here, this is totally reusable. I'm just going to do it this way because it's easier. That being said, so you need to take these two bolts out. And once you do that, and you have the wires, you got to unplug, like let's see, there's one wire here, or one group of wires here, one plug here. There's like I don't know, 3 or 4 plugs that you got to unplug off of this mechanism, right? And then on this on the left side, there's 2 screws basically that you got to remove that take the actual starting electrical connector, right? It's actually what this key turns. You got to take that out of here, right? There's a screw there and a screw there, and you just pop it out. And then, you know, you kind of just be careful with all the wires and everything. But basically, after you get, you know, these 2 out of there, then this will, you know, come down. You can get it out of the car. Okay, so you got it out of the car, and it looks like this. Okay. And this makes it pretty easy. We're just going to go ahead and put it in our vise, right? And we're going to remove some screws out of here, okay? So, Phillips screwdriver. This is the ring that senses the chip in your key. This is the first thing you're going to take off, okay? It's just 2 screws. 1. And let's see, which one is it? 1. Oh yeah, it's right under here. 2. Okay. We're just going to take that guy off, set it aside. Okay. The second ring is for the reminder. I think this is for the sound reminder, the little dinger that tells you don't forget to take your keys out before you shut your door, or you might accidentally, you know, lock your keys in the car. I don't know what, but anyways, I think that this right here makes the noise whenever you put your key in your ignition. Little beeper that I like to disable on my vehicles, but that's another video too. Okay, so we're going to gently take this off of there, okay? And underneath of it, you're going to see a little circuit board. On this model, there's a couple different models, but this video is going to work for any key pretty much that looks like this. It doesn't even have to be really Honda. I don't know exactly how to take the other lock cylinders apart. Again, different video, but let's keep on going. So now we're going to easily, gently, let's see. Yeah, we're going to take this guy up off of here, and we're just going to let him dangle right here, okay? Now, at this point, there's a couple of things that you got to be careful about. Let me see if I can turn this so you can see that. Number one, this little roll pin right here, we need to get this roll pin out, but we're going to do that second because there's another little floater over here that you could lose, and I don't know what it does, but I'm sure they put it in there for a reason, so it's probably important. So we need to get this little guy right here. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it looks like you can. Okay, we need to get this guy out of there. Okay, so let's take that guy, put him down. All right, and that's it. It's just a little, here, let's see if we can, I don't know if we can see that or not. Okay, it's just a little guy. There's no springs, it's not a screw, it's just a little pin deal. Not even sure what it does, but like I said, I'm sure it's got a purpose. Okay, so you get that guy out of there, right? Then we're gonna rotate this back around. See this? Okay, we need to get this roll pin right here, needs to come out. Okay, now I've already had it out, but one thing that I've found, again, I'm no expert, but this works really good for me, or has worked really good for me, is a little this is a Torx, a little tiny Torx screwdriver. Okay, and if you can get one that'll fit real nicely inside of that roll pin, a lot of times you don't want it in there to where it's, you know, making your roll pin expand. So this one's actually too big. I grabbed the wrong one. You don't want it to expand because that makes it harder to get out, and you don't want to have to shove it in there really hard, because then it's potentially really hard to get out. Okay, this one, when I first pulled it apart, was actually all I did was I just kind of pushed down on this lock cylinder right here, and kind of pushed it up and down, and it actually came out pretty easy. Okay, so again, you just kind of gotta, you don't want to shove it in. You want to, you know, it can't go anywhere on the way in except for buried further in there. Okay, so I got that out, right? There it is. It's a little roll pin. We'll put that down here. Okay, I'm trying to make this video short, but you almost have to understand exactly what's going on, and it's hard for me to explain. But okay, so now here we go. This is the actual lock cylinder that contains the tumblers that fail. Okay, and I've pulled apart 3 of these, and all 3 of them, when it got to this point, were failed because the tumbler is worn and it's not following the ridges on that key. Maybe it's because the key's a little bit worn and the tumbler is a little bit worn. That's probably the case. Okay, this car has 260,000 miles on it or something. You know, it's probably not the only thing that's wearing out, but that's, again, for another video. Okay, so once you get this lock cylinder out of there, there's a couple things you got to do. Basically, you want to pay attention to what you're doing so that you can put it back together the same way. It's not rocket science. If you've gotten this far, you could probably figure it out. So this roll pin right here needs to come out. Okay, so you can force it through this way, you can force it through back down through the bottom, but it has to come all the way out. It's just like this one. I'm not going to do that. Let's do it. Might as well. Okay, so I'm going to take my little doohickey here, little punch, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to shove that roll pin back down out of there, hopefully. Maybe it's easier from the bottom. Let's try that. Okay. There we go. Okay. That roll pin. It's almost out of there. Being kind of a little a-hole. Okay, there we go. Now, again, it's just a little roll pin just like the other one, except for it's a little bit longer. So keep track of which one's which. Okay, you can see I got lots of little parts here. Okay, now back to this. And this is the orientation that I like to do it in. You can, whatever, do it your own way. So you take out that roll pin, slide this guy off. I like to, at that point, set it so that I know, but really, I mean, honestly, you can, if you look at it, okay? It's got a little narrow groove in it right here. And get that over there. Okay, it's got a little narrow groove in it, and it's got a wide groove in it, right? So it can really only go on to the actual lock cylinder one way, okay? So there we go. I'm gonna move this back up. So, okay, take that guy off. Set him aside. Okay, now, at this point, this lock cylinder can come out of this housing, okay? What you want to do is you want the key in there at this point, okay? If you don't have the key in there and you slide this lock cylinder out of there, your tumblers are going to fall out, springs are going to fall out, it's going to be bad news, okay? So when you slide this lock cylinder out of this little tunnel, we'll call it, or whatever housing, okay, you want to have your key in there, okay? If you don't, these tumblers will drop out of there, springs will be flying, you won't know the orientation of them, it'd be a little bit of a pain in the ass to figure out how to put them all back together. So my recommendation, put the key in it before you slide it out of there, okay? So at this point, once you get it here, okay, you can see there are these little, and I've already taken out a set. I already took out the first set of tumblers, okay? Those are the ones I've been showing you, right? These actually were in here, right? They go in there, and they won't go in there right now because the key's in it, but underneath of these, okay, are these little itty bitty springs, wherever they're flying around over there. Don't care. I'm not going to, personally, this is what I do. This makes it a little bit less secure, I guess. Potentially, if you had, well, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, if you had the first 3 grooves on your key right, you would still need a chip. So I personally, I don't think that this makes it any less secure. But anyways, and this is what I do. You do what you want, okay? But when I pulled this apart, and you'll see on yours too, probably, with the key in there, it's not smooth, okay? There's one of these that's sticking up, right? And okay, so I'm going to show you. So these tumblers can slide out of their grooves at any point, okay, whenever you remove the key. So the way I do it is I put my index finger on one side, my thumb on the other. That way, when I pull the key out, okay, these things don't go shooting everywhere, right? You need to pay attention to that, right? Because if you don't have if you're not covering these, right, and you pull that key out, okay, everything's everywhere, okay? So this is important. And if you want to lock them in there so you don't have to worry about that, just put the key back in, okay? They're secure. They're not going anywhere. They can't, right? But when you have the key out, they're loose, okay? So what I do is at that point, after I get this apart, I take the key out, okay? And then I'm going to try to show you without losing all the rest of this stuff. Basically, on one side of this cylinder, can you see that? Kind of, there we go. On this side, you can see basically I can slide these tumblers out of there, okay? So let me just show you, try to anyways. These little suckers will slide out of those grooves, okay? That right there is what it looks like with one of them in there. And then obviously the other one would be on the other side, but you need to take out these ones, the ones that are closest to where you put the key in, okay? That's what we're doing. I'm taking this out, okay? Bye-bye, right? And I'm gonna leave all the rest of them in there, okay? So there should be 3 more pairs, 1 pair, 2 pairs, 3 more pairs, and then whatever this guy is at the end, I don't know if he's actually one or not, but it doesn't matter. That'll solve your problem. Okay, so now you gotta reverse what we did to begin with. Okay, so see this little gray square thing? That's gonna go, and it's gonna actuate this guy. So let's go like this. So it's gonna go in like this. I'm gonna push it in that far. Okay, it's gonna look like that. And then you're gonna get this guy that we took off of there, and it's got these little, let's see if we can find, see these little notches and stuff on here. This is for the different positions on your keys. So you're gonna slide this guy back on there, right? And then basically you can see that that'll allow you to, let me turn it like that, put that roll pin back in right there. Okay, so now we need the longer of the 2 roll pins. We're going to put that in. Okay, now once you've got it to this point, you should be able to not only take your key out, put your key in, okay? You should be able to turn that cylinder now. If you can't, you got a problem. Okay? Up to this point, you were not able to turn the cylinder. Okay? It would not turn until we took out those failed tumblers, right? At this point, you should be able to, and you got to push, okay, because that's what these grooves are doing, right? But you push in, and you should be able to spin this as many times as you want, right? But you got to be in a certain position in order for it to allow you to remove the key. Okay, so basically there it is. Okay, and that, again, that's where this little square channel is straight up and down with this. Okay, done. Right, so now we got to take this guy, put him back in here. Right, there is a spring down in there. That's why when I do this, I put it vertically like this. Okay, and now we need to push it down to where we got to put this roll pin back in, right? So we're going to put this roll pin in. Okay, you don't need to get wild with it because it's covered up. So in my opinion, you don't need to shove it in there real hard. Just get it in there. All it's doing is just holding this mechanism together. Okay, so we got that guy. Then we got this little chrome looking doodad. Okay, not quite sure what it does. Don't care. I'm gonna put it back in. Bam. Maybe have a little bit of luck. There we go. Got it. Okay. So again, that's right there. Okay. Then got to put this guy back up there. Right. Perfect. Okay. We're going to put this guy back on. All right. And pretty much the rest is history. Okay, if you got this far, you can put it back together. And you're welcome. Because I know it's a pain in the butt, especially when it's not even your car, but it's a friend of yours or your girlfriend's, your mom's car, and they're not happy, and you have to borrow them a car and drive them around or whatever else, kind of becomes a pain in the butt for everybody. So I hope this helped solve your problem. I'm going to put this guy, oh yeah, there we go. Okay. There's a total of 4 screws that hold pretty much this whole thing together. Oops. 4 screws and 2 roll pins and a little floaty penny doodad. Okay, there we go. And voila, check it out. Now you should have a fully functional, run-of-the-mill Honda block cylinder that your key will turn now, right? And it will disengage that little lock guy, right? Everything should be good to go. Okay, I hope this guy helps you guys. I wish this video would have been on YouTube when I was learning how to do this. You guys have a great day. It's Brian with Snow White Customs.